Hi everyone, I'm Will Brown and welcome to the WPQuickies series, bite-sized WordPress tips and tricks in 30 minutes or less. So in this lunchtime quickies, I'm going to be talking about WordPress on Amazon AWS services. So I got quite a few requests to talk about this one. So thanks for all those topics that you sent in. And thanks as well for taking your time to spend with me this afternoon or wherever you are, wherever country you are. Just drop your name and where you're living in the comments, just so I can say a nice hello to you. And while you're doing that, make sure that you subscribe to the channel on YouTube and ding that bell. And on Facebook, just give a big thumbs up. We'll have a look and see who's on a line today. So we have Future Shot from Marrickville and Yuko from Kensington. And we got Morris from Sydney Jail. Yeah, we're all in lockdown at the moment. It's just getting worse and worse here, unfortunately. And greetings from the sunny Gold Coast. I hope you guys are keeping well and safe there. We've got the maze. What do you do in lockdown? Upgrade to WordPress Tatum. Yep. So that's WordPress 5.8, which just released, what, about a week ago, 20th of July. Yep, so update all your WordPress websites. I usually wait until the 0.1 comes out. So I've not been quick to update mine to 5.8. I think I'll wait for 5.8.1 to come out. Paul says, hi, and we've got Mr. Meowpuss from Singapore. Started a new job. So you're missing in action. Awesome. Great. Let's see where we got. Love our work gifts. Darren, Sydney, welcome. And on top as well, greetings from Sydney. And Cameron is joining us as well from lockdown in South Australia. Unfortunately, it's just getting worse and worse, isn't it? Yeah, Joey J from Singapore. Thanks, guys. Thank you for taking your time to join with me today. This is a real big topic. So AWS was a real big topic. So I had a lot of difficulty trying to squeeze it down into like 30 minutes and not ramble on. And as well, homeschooling as well. So we're all in lockdown. All the kids are at home. So homeschooling is taking a chunk of my time as well. So I literally just finished the presentation about 10 minutes ago. So hopefully it's good enough for you guys. On top says he did 5.8 update yesterday. After all this use, it actually worked. Okay, well, that's good to know. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, guys, if you want to ask a question, drop it in the comments during my talk. I do use an hashtag ask just so I can quickly see the topics. But this is going to be a quickie one. So I've zoomed out a bit for this one for AWS. And I've kind of concentrated on just a couple of things, mostly the pros and cons and not so much the technical architecture, because I can't really cover it all in 30 minutes or less. That's probably be like an hour presentation to do a proper AWS system. But I'll try and take you through some of the basics, just so that if AWS is something that's cropped up within you or with your clients, at least you've got enough knowledge to kind of understand and then do some research or give them some feedback on that topic for there. So let's dive into it. I'll make this one a little bit bigger. There we go. And so AWS, Amazon Web Services. So just a quick update, just to let you know what Amazon Web Services is. I'm sure you guys all know exactly what it is, but I'm going to just read it out just so everyone watching on the replay just has the same kind of base level of understanding. So AWS, it's Amazon's on-demand cloud computing platform. It provides access to large-scale cloud computing capabilities without having to build your own physical server farm. So it's all their architecture, and they basically lift that and give it availability for us to buy and use as is. So although AWS is billed as a pay-as-you-go basis, the subscription fee is going to vary based on the hardware and software and network features that you choose, as well as things like availability, security, and service requirements. In fact, pricing is one of the probably the most complex thing to understand about the pure AWS services. But we're going to look at something a little bit different as well that should help beginners just to get working on AWS. So AWS itself, it's a collective name for hundreds of cloud computing services. So it actually offers over 200 different types of services from data centers globally. There's one here in Sydney as well. And there's millions of customers running AWS platforms, from individuals all the way to enterprises. So it's not just for big companies. Individuals and small companies can use this as well. So some of the features, some of the services they offers are things like Amazon Simple Storage Service, also known as Amazon S3. So that's your cloud file storage. So if you want to store like videos or PDF files, you can drop them up into an S3 instance there. And it's really, really low cost. I think I've got probably about a terabyte of stuff on AWS, and I pay about 3 cents, 3 US cents every month for that. So it's really, really low cost for that. And another service is Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud. And that's better known as EC2, and that's basically your web server. So it's a virtual computer cluster, and it's basically pre-installed with anything you want. But most people will tend to use an EC2 as a web server. And then there's something called AWS Lambda. So this is just 3 examples out of over 200 services. So AWS Lambda, so this is a serverless, event-driven computing platform designed to build on-demand applications that can run code for specific events. So, if you're building like a custom solution and you just want to have some computing power based on something, so it could be a database export, it could be some transactions that have completed overnight, then you can fire that off to an AWS Lambda and just process that information based on that one event, that one trigger for those. So lots of things, some complicated, some not so complicated, all branded under an umbrella called AWS Amazon Web Services. Okay, so what does that mean for setting up a WordPress server on AWS? Because that's what you guys are here for, right? It means using an AWS server and an AWS database, because basically, WordPress only really needs 2 things to run. It needs a web server and it needs a database server as well. So the easiest way to get onto AWS is using something called Lightsail. And there's the logo for Lightsail. Now, Lightsail itself, it's a cloud platform that provides everything you need to deploy and host a WordPress website, including instances, managed databases, static IP addresses, and load balancers. If you don't know what those are, that's okay. I'll explain it a little bit more towards the end. But basically, Lightsail is designed to be beginner friendly, and the interface is very similar to something like cPanel or Plesk. It's very icon driven and wizard driven. So it's really super easy, and you'll be familiar with the interface if you've used anything like cPanel or Plesk before. Now, the Lightsail management console, it provides easy access to all the core AWS configuration options. So you can configure your server, you can set your static IP address, you can configure your DNS, your domain names as well, and without any kind of special assistance. It's all, the interface is very UI driven, it's very icon driven, very big and very easy to navigate through that. So it's really, really designed specifically for the beginner entry level onto AWS for that. Now, if you're an individual or you run a small business that doesn't have a system administrator on hand, then you can easily use Lightsail to create, deploy, and maintain a self-hosted WordPress website. They've really made it super easy. Now, using Lightsail, you can typically bring a host online within minutes. So even if you have 0 previous AWS experience. So let's have a quick look through at the interface. I'll make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see that there. So there's several steps that Lightsail will step you through, kind of several wizard things. I'm just going to cover kind of the important ones here, but there are extra steps. This is not full, step-by-step how to get WordPress onto AWS Lightsail. But basically, what you want to do at the very, very first case is you want to select where your server is going to be. And there's quite a few options. There's probably more than this image is just now. But basically, you can see that it's got some of the main cities covered. So we've got United States, we've got Tokyo, we've got Canada, we've got Singapore, and there's the Sydney one down at the bottom as well, with ones in Europe too. So the first thing is to really say where your server is going to be based. And of course, you want to have that base close to where your main target audience are. So, if you're serving Australia, then of course you're going to choose the Sydney data center. But if you're catering to a European market, then maybe you want to choose London or Germany. So you're closer to your target audience. So that's the first thing that Lightsail will ask you. Ask you about where you want to store your server. The next thing you want to do is choose your instance plan. Now, remember that all these plans are based in US dollars. So it's pretty low cost. The instances are pretty cheap. if you want to start off small with a website or a blog, and you can upgrade or downgrade at any time. And Amazon Lightsail is a little bit different from the kind of the traditional AWS services, in that this is a kind of a boxed system. So you're choosing your RAM, your CPU, your file space, and your transfer, your data transfer, your bandwidth, and that's boxed in a monthly price. Now that's a bit different from the normal AWS, which prices kind of everything really, really complex. But this is what it's aimed for. It's aimed at a WordPress beginner market. So you know that you're going to pay this amount per month, $5, $10, all the way up to this $80 for like 8 gig of RAM, 2 CPUs, and 80 gigabyte SSD, and 5 terabytes of transfer. So you know you've got a fixed cost, which is great, because one of the pain points with the normal traditional Amazon, the non-Lightsail, is the pricing model, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So you've chosen your region or your country where you want your web server and stuff installed. Then you go and you choose your instance plan. So you choose, the small one or the middle one, or however you want to price it, and that sets your web server resources basically. So the next thing you want to do, and this is how Lightsail makes it super easy, is it has all these, and again, you'll be familiar with this if you've used cPanel or Plesk, but it has all these icons for different types of web servers or different types of applications that you can install on the web server. Because Lightsail itself, you can install pretty much anything. It's just a web server. But here we have what they call images. For these, and here you can see we've got WordPress up here. Obviously, this is an old version there. You did have the current version if you go into Lightsail at the moment, but you can install like just a normal lamp stack, which is just like a normal web server stack for that. Node.js, Joomla. So you can see all these buttons. It just makes it really, really quick to deploy on Lightsail. So you click on WordPress, and that would install your WordPress into the database, all the stuff on there, and then you'd basically be able to go into the admin area, give yourself a username and password, and log in. Okay, so how do you actually update the server itself? Well, once you've gone through the whole setup process, you actually get access to SSH. So that can be a little bit complex for some people. So basically, SSH stands for Secure Shell, and it allows you to log into the server itself, and it's all a command line interface. And it's all browser based. You don't need to download any stuff. So you don't have to go in here. When you went through the Lightsail WordPress install, you can go directly into WordPress admin area and just hit WordPress running from there. But if you do want to install anything on the server, if you want to change some stuff on the server, then you do have access to SSH into this. And if you're doing that, then you can do things like you can install extra services. So you can install something like WP-CLI, which is a command line interface for WordPress that a lot of system administrators use. It helps them to maintain the WordPress features, things like updating plugins with a single command, updating themes with a single command, things like that. Or you could change your PHP version, or you could add extra PHP libraries in at this level here. So this is how you'd interact with the server. You don't have to. If you're just like starting off, you can just go through the Lightsail process, install WordPress, go into the admin area, and that's you fine. Or, if you do want access to the server, you've got access to the server via SSH for things like that. Now, there are a few more steps in creating your WordPress instance that I've shown. I've just shown the kind of the main ones. But, you'd have to do things like configure DNS, point it to the IP address, create a static IP address, and things like that. But it's all stepped through you in a kind of wizard step process. So you can't really go wrong with doing that. Okay, so here are some of the pros, so the good points of using AWS Lightsail. So we're concentrating on the Lightsail at the moment. So Lightsail, so the pros, the plus signs, it's a beginner's product, and it's aimed at getting WordPress installed on AWS really quick and really easily. Now I've got a link here, and I'll post all the links into the comments down below the videos afterwards, so you'll be able to have those. But that basically just gives you a little bit more background information on Lightsail and WordPress specifically on Lightsail. Now, Lightsail itself is very flexible, so you can upgrade and you can downgrade your instances and services just like you would on a normal or regular WordPress host or hosting company. And with it being AWS, you can really configure and tailor that system, exactly how you want it within the monthly, guides or boxes that you've chosen. And of course, being on AWS, being on Amazon, it is super, super fast. And that's one of the main reasons that people move their website onto Amazon, because it is super, super fast. It's probably, well, it is the best cloud platform at the moment out there. But Amazon Azure is catching up with kind of the very, very close platforms as far as cloud computing. But I think Amazon definitely has that edge over Microsoft Azure at the moment. And one of the good things about this Amazon Lightsail is that it has a set monthly price. So you pay the hourly rate based up to the total price of the package you are on. And that's a big game changer, because the regular Amazon way it's priced is very, very difficult to understand. So here's some of the not so good parts of Lightsail. Now, one of the biggest negatives for using it is that this particular type of service, the Lightsail service, does not auto scale. Now, I say one of the big reasons that people move to AWS Amazon is for the speed, and that's true. Probably the second biggest reason is that it's a cloud service, and in a cloud service, you would expect a web server to be able to auto scale to meet the demand of your traffic. But Lightsail does not do that. It's a box system for beginners. And if it hits that limit, then your server is struggling. It doesn't auto scale for that. And that's probably fine for a beginner level website. But if you're going to have an e-commerce site that has something like seasonal traffic, or if you're running like digital marketing campaigns, that can be a real bad point. So just take that into consideration. One of the other bad things about Lightsail, well, not bad things, but one of the more negative things, is that you have to pay for technical support. Now, while you do have access to very, very good documentation and videos and all that stuff, and 24 by 7 customer support, that's not the same. The customer support is not technical support. So if you are not a technical buff, this may be a deal breaker for you. And if you do require technical support, then you need to purchase a separate support package on top of your monthly Lightsail, which just currently is around about $29 per month. And of course, it goes up depending on the amount of technical requirement that you need. So yeah, just be very, very careful about that. So we've got a couple of questions here. I might circle back through to the questions at the end, okay, guys? So bear with me. Another con, I guess, for AWS in general, I think, and not so much just for Lightsail, I should have put this in the general one, is that unless Amazon have changed their anything since the last few years, the legal terms and conditions, they are basically able to use any information that your website generate for their own purposes. Just like they do with their consumer e-commerce business. So if you're on Amazon shopping, and then basically any information you use there, any information you put in, any you purchase, that's all up for grabs, and they use that however they want. And that's the same for their AWS system as well. They can also share your data with pretty much anyone that they like. So privacy is not so good on AWS. They can basically use your stuff and however way they want it and share it all around. Okay, so we've kind of covered Lightsail. So Lightsail is the kind of beginners boxed package to get WordPress beginners onto the Amazon network. But let's have a look at AWS itself. So put Lightsail to one side, and now we're going to have a look at AWS. So because AWS is a collection of all these web services, you can go completely bananas and use everything. So here's an example of a high performance AWS setup. Now, there's lots of stuff there. Your eyes are probably kind of going all over the place, wondering what the heck all that stuff is. But basically, if you look at the very, very middle and down towards, in the middle, at the top and the bottom, that's your WordPress instance. So that orange square in the middle. So that's your WordPress. And then everything all around is all the complementary AWS services. So we've got things like, if you go over to the right-hand side of WordPress, we've got Memcache, which is like a memory cache system. So it's going to be faster than disk. So we view all the performances in memory. Then we've got Aurora. Aurora is a cloud-based auto-scaling database system. So it's different from the RDS, the relational database system that Lightsail would use. It's a real high enterprise performance database system. Then we've got Amazon EFS for all the file systems in there. So that's like a scaling cloud file system. And then what else? So on the left of WordPress instance, we've got a gateway, which then goes into a load balancer. And the load balancer, and what a load balancer does basically is it has a look at all the WordPress instances and the databases, and it transfers traffic to the one with the least pressure. So the one with the most resources to offer, it will balance the traffic out. So all the traffic's not hitting that one WordPress instance or the one database system all the time. That's what a load balancer does. And then we've got the internet, and then we've got the number level 2, the little red bucket down there is the Amazon S3. So that's for all your static assets. That's like the media library, all your PDFs and images and stuff. Then we've got Amazon CloudFront, which goes into Route 53, which is the DNS thing, and then out to users. So yes, that's a very, very big system. And yes, Steph, I do like your comment. It looks expensive, and it is. It's very, very, very expensive. Okay, here is another one. So that's probably, this one here is like really top high performance setup that you probably use for like an enterprise level or very, very specific custom setup. So it's kind of using everything for WordPress. This is a little bit scaled back system. Let me just make that a little bit big. A little bit scaled back. So what we can see here is we have two. So in the middle, the orange rectangles, we have an EC2. So that's the web server. So we've got two of them here. So this is an example of multiple instances on AWS. So what we can have here is like a simple load balancing setup. So in this case, we've got two web servers in the middle, in the green part. And then we've got a load balancer in the middle, and that's directing traffic to the instance with the most resources available so that you're not getting one of them swamped all the time for this one. Then we've got two databases. On the left-hand side, we've got a database master, and then on the right-hand side, we've got a slave. So that just copies all the information. But again, we've got like two separate databases, which means that the traffic can be balanced between those two. One database for one of the instances here. And we've got the S3 bucket as well, which is storing all of our media content on this one. So this is a rather simpler way of setting up WordPress on AWS. And we've got two instances here. I've got all the traffic coming to load balancer, and the load balancer is setting the traffic between these two instances to make sure that not one of them, is going to go down or whatever. So that's a very kind of simple multiple instance AWS setup for WordPress. Is a very common setup for that, to have these two instances always running, and you're load balancing for those two, so that you get the performance from your WordPress website. Here is another one. So whereas this one here is multiple instances, so you're running two servers here and load balancing between the two. This one here is slightly different. This one is auto scaling. So here we have your EC2 instance, and that is set up to auto scale. So what that really means is that the more traffic it gets, it's going to add itself more memory, it's going to add itself more CPU, it's going to add itself more RAM. So it's going to scale with the traffic. It's not going to spin up an instance in this case. And this is just like the one server, and it's auto scaling itself to for demand in the traffic. And we're just using a normal relation RDS database here, which is the normal Amazon database. It's not the Aurora, which is the super expensive cloud one. And then we've just got a classic load balancer here, which is sending that traffic to that auto scaling instances here. And then again, we've got multimedia in the S3 for here, and just a couple of extra things before it goes out to the internet. So again, this is like auto scaling. So this kind of bit in the middle is kind of spinning up instances. It's adding RAM and CPU as it needs. If it hits a top layer for an instance, then it will spin up a new instance and then shut it down and load balance. But basically, it tries to auto scale the RAM and CPU, to try and deal with all the traffic there. So we can see that using the traditional AWS, it can get very, very complicated. You can go absolutely nuts with that one. or you can spin up. So this is not Lightsail. This is just AWS services. Or you can have like a simple two server load balancing, which is probably the easiest thing to get into for AWS if you want your WordPress running just on the actual services. Or you can go a little bit further and do for that auto scaling as well. If you've got like a shop, or if you've got like a bigger client that you want to make sure that their website scales with all the demand for the marketing and seasonal stuff as well. So let's just jump in quickly, and then I'll circle back to some of the questions. So like the general pros for AWS, this is not Lightsail, just Amazon AWS itself, is of course, again, it's super fast. So it's probably one of the biggest benefits of running a WordPress on AWS is that it's super, super fast. Flexibility is another one. So you have total control over every AWS service. You can fine tune the pants out of that system. So if your database server isn't working properly or isn't being efficiently, you can go into all the layers and tune everything specifically exactly the way you want it, which is fantastic. Auto scaling as well, so you can set up AWS to load balance to multiple web services. They can spin up, they can spin down instances depending on traffic, being able to respond to low traffic and high traffic as well, and not suffer any outages. And that's super important, of course, if you've got a large scale business, or if you've got like an enterprise level client that just cannot afford to be down. And as general, AWS, it is a complete solution. So you can host the entire web solution stack from within AWS. No need to go anywhere else. So you can register and you can configure your domain name and DNS with Route 53. You can set up an EC2 web server, and you can set up an RDS database. You can install and run WordPress. You don't need to go anywhere for any of that. And some people like that. Some people like having the one system, everything in the same place. So here's some of the down points for AWS, Amazon AWS in general. So if we zoom out for like the big web services, then really, unless you're topping about 60,000 uniques every month, Amazon Web Services is likely going to be super overkill for your WordPress host. So if you're a blogger and you're just posting a couple of blogs a week, if you've got like a small shop with 100 products in it, if you're only getting less than 5,000 visitors every month, and AWS service, this is the non-Lightsail, so AWS itself is probably going to be super overkill for your WordPress website. Pricing. So let's talk a bit about pricing. Pricing is super expensive on AWS. Now, it's not if you don't get the traffic, and it is if you do get the traffic. Now, while you can add some limits on each service, in general, the more you use, the more your credit card gets charged. And if you get picked up on TV or radio, then it's going to cost you a lot. So the pricing is a complete pain in the butt with Amazon. It's super complex and gives me a headache trying to work out things, even using their own calculator service. For example, and I'm not going to dwell too much on this, for example, a server. So you're talking about not just the CPU size, the core, but the number of CPU ticks that it does. The RAM, you've got the RAM pricing, the RAM usage as well. You've got the bandwidth, you've got the bandwidth traffic, and there's different levels of traffic at different levels of times of the day. Then you've got the management of that cost on top of it. Just the pricing is super complex. So whereas the flexibility of AWS, we can go into every single aspect and tweak it however you like. Equally, the pricing reflects that. So every little bit of AWS, every component is priced. Excuse me. And that just makes it super complex to try and work out pricing. And again, if you've not got any limits there and your website gets picked up on local media, then you're going to get a surge of traffic. If you normally get maybe 10,000 a month and you're suddenly getting 1 million hits, then AWS is just going to scale up, meet that traffic, and then your pricing point is going to go through the roof as well. So definitely a big con if you're not expecting that particular level of usage. Okay, so that's basically my very very basic overview of AWS, Amazon AWS. So we've covered the Lightsail product, which is like a kind of boxed product for beginners, and then we've had a look at kind of more complex, really complex, using the AWS service to kind of build your solution, build your WordPress stack from ground up to be like auto scaling to all the traffic as well. So let's have a quick look at some of the questions. Steph asks, does Lightsail cover server patching? No, it does not. So you purchase Lightsail, you are the admin for that. So you need to go into SSH, you're going to need to update and maintain the server, or buy a support package and they will update that for you for that. Morris asks, you mentioned storing the images on AWS. If I want to use them on a website, not hosted on AWS, I understand these images need to be made public, which is a privacy risk. Is that correct? That's an interesting question. So if you've got your normal WordPress website, say on SiteGround, and you want to put all your media up into Amazon S3, then yes, there's plugins for that. So there's plugins that when you add stuff to the media library, automatically uploads it to S3 bucket, and then creates the link, so it links back to your WordPress website. Now, yes, the bucket needs to be made public, but there's no difference between having your images in a public AWS bucket than there are having them on your normal SiteGround hosting system, because they need to be public, obviously, to display on the web browser. So as long as you have a separate bucket and just create a separate bucket for your WordPress website, make that public. As long as you're storing just your normal media files, your JPEGs, your PDF stuff in there, then there's not really any difference between like a public bucket and just your normal web hosting storage file system. So as long as you're keeping your bucket separate and not putting all your private stuff in this one big thing, then that should be okay. So that's a tip. If you're going to be using S3, create a separate bucket just for your WordPress installation, and just make sure you store your images and files in that, and all your other private S3 or different S3 stuff, different buckets with different privacy levels on that. That's a great question. Steph asks, how do you sync more than one instance? Well, it's that's all done with the EC2 cluster service. So EC2 itself, you create one instance. So you'd set up your WordPress on your EC2, however you'd like it, with all your plugins, with all your settings. And then when the load balancer detects that you got extra traffic, it basically creates a copy of that instance. So so you end up with two instances. It then spins up two databases as well. One's always marked as a master database. So all the information coming in and storing into WordPress will go into the master database. And then the database management system itself will sync data from the master over to the slave, which will be a read only for those. So all those extra instances that are spin up, you can kind of think of them as kind of read mode. And then all the data comes into the first instance and into that first master database. And that's how it synchronizes that together. That's a great question, Steph. Let's see. The Maze asks, do you have a feeling for how you decide between Lightsail and a classic cPanel hosted servers? Price, convenience, and performance. Yeah, so that's a super good question. I guess from Amazon, you're going to get the super fast speed. So if you're really wanting a super fast website, then Amazon is the way to go. They've got the primary DNS system, so even their DNS lookups are faster than most regular hosts. And if you actually dig down into some of the hosts, you'll probably see that they are actually running their system on Amazon itself, AWS system itself. But yeah, so it's up to you. You have to take away these pointers that I've said today. You know, if you want it fast, if you want it flexible, then AWS could be a good way to go for that. However, if you just want to go like normal, it's really going to balance between, if you're a technical person, you can probably get away with using Amazon and being able to update some of the stuff yourself. If you're really super non-technical and you know that you're going to need that technical assistance, then maybe Lightsail is not the thing for you, because you'd have to buy a support package on that. Saying that, it's still super cheap. So if you've got a small, you have a look at the pricing. Let's go back to the pricing here. There we go. This one here. So like, even if you're running like a 2 GB, so that's a $20 per month. That's 20 US dollars. Okay, so it's going to be about 32 Australian bucks. That's still super cheap for like a 2 GB RAM, 1 CPU, and a terabyte bandwidth. That's kind of shared hosting pricing levels, but you're actually getting like a super fast system for that. So, and even if you were to buy a support package on top of that, that's going to bring you up to about $60, which is still kind of cheaper than things like SiteGround on that same level, kind of that same speed and efficiency for a server and resources for that. So yeah, it's super cheap, super fast. And you've really just got to kind of balance between what you want to do for that. Do you want to run a super fast website, buy the technical package and let Amazon look after that instance, and you've got like the kind of cheap price for a fast machine, or do you want to go with like a regular hosting, which is going to be a little bit slower, a little bit more costly to get the same sort of stuff as you would on Lightsail for that? So that was a super question. Thank you very much. And Steph, as always, you're always talking about static websites, Steph. I know, yeah, static website is going to be the super fastest. But of course, we're running with WordPress here, and WordPress essentially is dynamic. So we're looking at dynamic solutions for that. Okay, I went a little bit over half an hour. Sorry for that, guys. I'll just go through some of the other quick slides just quickly. So I dealt with some questions. Let's see. Next, yep. So I'm always looking for topics. So you can click that QR code after the video is finished and fill out some more topics for me. There's a shout out for WPAustralia.org. You can find out what meetups are happening throughout Australia from there. And you can also join us on Slack as well. I'd really recommend that you join us on Slack, get into the community, get to know some people. And there's a little Slack there. So there's lots of stuff in there. There's lots of channels like business tips, code help, general plugins, jobs, Gutenberg support, lots more. And you get to know some people in the community. Little shout out for my WASG thing. You can have a look at that later. And you're just happy to connect with you guys as well. I'm mostly on LinkedIn these days under Developer Will, but I'm on Instagram as willbrown_AU and Developer Will on Twitter as well. Okay, so next week, I'm going to be talking about options on how to clean up your WordPress media library. Now, there's been a lot of talk about WebP stuff, converting all your images to WebP, or if you've been running WordPress for like ever, you're going to have like a ton of stuff in there. So I'm going to be going through some comments, some ways that you can try and clean up your WordPress media library. So join me for that next week. Thank you very much for your time, for your questions. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.